Okay, Scott, name and address,
Yes.
sir.
Scott Becker at 405 South Washington, and I'm with Hodge & Associates. The letter before you, the applicant has asked me to read the letter to you, if you don't mind. So, Mayor Lambert, City Council members, thank you for your consideration of this lot division proposal located at 501 South Polk Street. As you know, the subject property is located in an R4 zone and as stated in the City Council or Moscow City zoning code, the R4 zoning district provides the most intense residential uses permitted in the community. The characteristics of the neighborhood reflect this zone and are a mix of single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, large apartment complexes, and professional offices throughout many blocks of the R4 zoning. The subject property is in close proximity to Latah County Courthouse General Business Zone and a short distance from downtown city business or city central business zoning. Several neighbors have stated in the Public Works Committee meeting that they felt the existing house was in disrepair and expressed concerns that it will be removed, which could increase the density if decided to build on the current house footprint. In response to these concerns, the current house is far from a state of disrepair. You can see in the pictures there that it's actually pretty good. It is a good rental property, and we have plans to hold it long term. It currently has a post and pier foundation that is adequate based on an inspection report that we had from a professional inspector. If the lot division is approved, we plan to move the house further south to meet the setbacks of the new lot and will install a concrete foundation at that time. If the lot division is not approved, there's no problem with the house sitting as it is, and we'll still have the opportunity to build as many units as allowed in the R4 zone. In fact, we could potentially put in more units not having the lot division, since we don't have to meet the setback requirements for one lot instead of two. For this case, the potential density decrease of the lot division upon granting the proposed lot division, which should be a positive factor for those concerned about building on this property. At this point in time, we do not have specific plans for the proposed back lot, as we do not want to proceed with planning and designing phase without the lot division approval. The current lot layout has a feel of two parcels with the house in the front and a lot and large open space going west with the driveway already in place to access that portion. Prior to the purchase of the property, this property sat on the market for a duration of 619 days. It seems others had ample time to purchase the property if they were greatly concerned about the potential building and maintaining the character and heritage and natural setting of the lot, as several individuals stated at the Public Works Committee meeting. The sudden interest in this property began once the public notice went out for the lot division. And in my opinion, many neighbors simply do not want anything going on with this property since it's close to their homes. While we can appreciate this perspective, this is an unrealistic expectation for a property in an R4 zone conducive to high-density building and multifamily units. We feel the lot division is a reasonable request based on R4 zoning, large size of the current lot, and considering that we have the ability to build additional units on this property. Granting this lot division will result in improvements to the current house by moving it further to the south and installing a concrete foundation. It will reduce the overall density of the property due to the constraints of meeting the setback requirements for these two lots instead of one. And then that was, you can see that's by, thank you for your time, Jared and Deborah Nichols and Dewey and Nicole Whiting. I talked to Jared a little bit further, and just to kind of find out what his plans are, and really he didn't want to go into a lot of planning and spend a lot of time unless he could get a lot division. Then he could look at a.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah. Look at something of what he could do, similar structure. So,
okay.
If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. But I think his letter speaks
Well, I think we're fine. Scott, if somebody needs something, get you back up
All right.
here, and from there,
Thank you very much.
if there's others that would like to come before us and speak, that's great.
My name is Jonathan Lombre, and I live at 419 South Polk Street, which is just to the north of the property. Mayor Lambert and the City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm here tonight because I believe it is important for the City Council and the City of Moscow to have an understanding of how the neighborhood property owners and the residents would like the neighborhood to be appreciated in our desire to maintain the neighborhood's identity, character, and heritage. A neighborhood history that includes where Carol Ryder Brink was raised and drew inspiration for her writing. Just because a particular use is allowed in an R4 neighborhood doesn't necessarily mean that it is compatible with the neighborhood's identity, character, and heritage. There are no flagpole lots in this area between 6th and D Streets and Main and Blaine Streets. When you look at the zoning map, you'll see that this area has no R3 buffers zone between the R2 and the R4. So you see the R3 at the north and the south, and it just ends, and there's no R3 in that area. My understanding is that in the past, this neighborhood may have been better suited for an R4 designation, especially when there was a fraternity house in the middle of the block. But due to the desirability of the Fort Russell Historic District, this neighborhood has made a significant shift to owner-occupied homes. There are now more children playing and enjoying the neighborhood than I have ever seen in the 14 years living there. 2 different homes in the neighborhood are currently under contract to be sold after being on the market for less than 1 week, and both of these houses will be owner-occupied. People like to point out that there are already a multifamily apartment complex at 516 South Polk, which is close to the corner of 6th, but this unit has also been owner-occupied. This lot division has potential for at least 2 duplexes, a parking lot, and a small alley with no requirement for any curb cut or driveway updates. In addition, the developers could also choose to widen the current curb cut and add an additional one to the south, eliminating 2 additional parking spaces on the street. Consider for a moment the requirement to space roll cart garbage and recycling containers 3 feet apart in the street. If there are 4 units, there will be 8 roll carts that theoretically will need 35 plus feet of empty street frontage to be disposed of. Street parking availability is a neighborhood facility that cannot accommodate any further increase in this land use intensity. You are aware that another option is for the developers to raise the current home and build a dense multifamily unit they can squeeze in. These options do not give the current residents and property owners any positive outcome. When do the property rights and the property values of the neighborhood as a unit come into consideration? Or is it just a simple issue of it's allowed in R4 zone? Is the city's desire to convert this neighborhood to higher density and drive out the owner-occupied families when in fact the neighborhood has been headed in the opposite direction? I would like to encourage the developers to put a foundation under the current house, fix it up, and create an excellent home for a family to enjoy. There were many, many people interested in purchasing this house, but they were not able to get bank financing because of the lack of the foundation. That is why it was on the market for so long. I am confident there'd be no problem selling it if there was a foundation under it. Also, I'd also like to ask the city to examine the continuation of the R3 buffer corridor east of Van Buren and west of Howard Street. Protect the neighborhood's identity, character, and heritage, and maybe even consider creating a new Carol Ryrie Brink historic neighborhood.
Thank you. We're here just talking about a subdivision, or a division lot. This is what we're talking about tonight. So thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Does somebody like to come forward? Other folks like to come forward? Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes if you would. State your name and address.
Hello, I'm David Slater, and I'm at 509 South Polk, so I'm at the property directly south of the property that we're talking about. And I must say that I am torn. I do like the idea of not having a large dwelling there, and so it's possible that the splitting the lot would help decrease the density as opposed to building a larger structure on it. I am, however, concerned about having another structure and more people and more density in the back of that lot, because there is no separation, no privacy towards the back of that lot with mine. There's a temporary wire fencing. There is a bit of wood fencing that's falling down in the backyard. And then there's some chicken wire and lilacs that serve as a fence along the back. What I'd hope to see is better separation if this is to be developed or if this is to be split, both on the north and the south side. I think the big thing, and what we heard at the prior meeting, was that the new owners of the property wish to maintain the character of the neighborhood, that they wish to make it fit in. I don't know what kind of conditions can be put to see that happen. I think we're all concerned because we just don't know what will happen. Probably many of you wouldn't like to live in a house where the backyard then becomes some larger structure that blocks out light and whatnot. So I think we're all, I'm concerned about that because I live next door. But I hope that you consider this carefully and try to make the best decision to preserve how the neighborhood looks and how it feels, and to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. Additional testimony? Okay, Councilman Walter.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, a question for Becky. If you would go back to your slide that showed the setbacks on the flag lot. I believe, you indicated the 3230 is the footprint square footage that could be allowed considering setbacks, but you also said and landscaping. How does the landscaping apply dependent upon what might be built on a flag lot?
So this area is just strictly where structures could be placed. It applies a 20-foot rear yard setback, a 10-foot side, and then 2 5-foot side yard setbacks.
Okay.
When I mentioned landscaping, I was referring to when a development requires more than 4 parking spots, it's considered a parking lot, and so therefore it has to meet all parking lot development standards, and that includes landscape buffers. So landscape buffer, should there be more than 4 parking spaces, and I should say parking lots can also be located within setback areas. This is just building setbacks. So the landscape buffer would be required where the parking lot is adjacent to residential properties, or in this case it would just be where adjacent to residential properties. It's also applied when adjacent to right-of-way. It'd be a 3-foot landscape buffer.
In width?
In width, yep, 36 inches in width between the parking and a neighboring property line.
Becky, to Walter's point, so that if somebody brought in, because nobody knows what the plan is for this, if this goes through. So when that plan is brought to developing, that is at that time, that's when you folks tell them and explain about the setbacks and how many parking spots there would be and
Yes.
the criteria for the buffer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
Other councilors got questions they want to bring up? Okay, but I can't make a motion, folks. I'm the mayor, so somebody.
Well, I'll make a motion then.
Well, John, or hang on a second. Art's got something he wants to
I
bring
was just
up.
going to say that I'm very much torn on this particular subdivision proposal because I really do not like flagpole lots at all. I think that, as was pointed out, within this zoning district, there isn't a flagpole lot anywhere within it. And this would be a change in character for the neighborhood as such. However, I'm also torn by the fact that if the subdivision doesn't go through, the developer is then free to develop it any way he sees fit with any form of multifamily housing and as long as it meets the strictures. So I'm having difficulties trying to parse my mind around which direction I'm going to go. But
Well, here's a clarification point, or you call it a subdivision, it's actually a lot division. There's a distinct difference between the two, isn't there, Becky? I mean,
Yeah, I believe it's when it's
Same.
three or fewer lots. Is that right?
yeah, lot division. So perhaps I misspoke there, but
Well, I just
I
wanted to
still
make sure.
dislike flagpole lots intensely.
okay.
Well, you've answered every question, and I appreciate the letters, and it looks like there was a lot of talking, which is what needed to happen, so thank you. So I'm going to move to approve the lot division with the conditions, approve the lot division request with the conditions that were stated,
I'll second.
the 3 conditions.
Okay. We've got a motion by Catherine and a second by John to approve the lot division with
Oh, yeah,
the specific,
and the rephrasing, the last one Art just mentioned, we should maybe make sure that the language is
the
clear.
tweak
since
of the
there was a
word
tweaking.
from
With the word serving
serve
added.
instead of 2 on bullet point number 3,
3.
correct? Everybody good on this? Start with you, Walter.
Aye.
Aye.
No?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that passes 5-1, so there is approval of that lot division. Thank you, Becky.
You're welcome.
Thank you for those that testified and brought